Order. Kelly, would you mind causing the roll to be called?
Collins,
Here.
Merle,
Here.
Neese,
Here.
Neeson, Topliff.
Present. All right, we have a quorum. Please rise. Dear God, as we gather this evening, we ask that you influence our hearts and minds so that we govern this city fairly and justly. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed on our community. And we ask your continued protection upon our city staff and crews. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
All right, any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Righty.
Next is recognition of guests. Each guest will have 5 minutes to address council. Please approach the podium and state your name and home address or place of business. First up is Maureen DeMarks.
Hello, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to hear this matter. My name's Maureen DeMarks. I live at 2403 Deathridge Avenue in West Plains, and I'm here to discuss the Bill 4789, where there's a desire to change the zoning in Block 12 there in the Morrison subdivision, and I'm speaking against it because we would prefer to have single-family homes remain there in that particular area. The city of West Plains went through a lot of trouble to make a comprehensive plan as to what should and shouldn't be zoned certain things. And that was to be left as R1. Mr. Grant here, who is a very nice man, by the way, I've met him. But he would like to put in triplexes in 5 lots that are just up above myself and Miss Harris here. And so we have a lot of issues that would come from that. One of them being an egregious amount of water would be coming down towards our property. We already have many rivers in front and behind our property as it is. So those roofs and parking lots would create more storm flow. Also, we really want to keep our property values high in the neighborhood. Naturally, multi-family homes generally turn a neighborhood, at least in that area, into more rentals. That's what's happened over at Burke Avenue, and in that particular area, they're about 50% rental homes now. So we'd like to keep our beautiful neighborhood. As I've one real estate person said it was a gem in the city of West Plains, and I really believe it is. I've lived there now for 5 years, and just built my house on Deathridge, right there, and this summer. And yeah, I'm definitely not happy about having to possibly move, because if you guys rezone it, I can't stay there. That was supposed to be my forever home. So we also have neighbors that live up on the hill that their property is attached to that property. I've spoken to them and actually put in a petition with their names on it. That they too would prefer not to see this happen. There are R3 properties that are directly on Burke Avenue, straight across from Plainview. That I spoke to Mr. Jerry Hall, and he said he would sell that property for $50,000 an acre. So it's not like there isn't R3 property that is real close by. So the availability is there for things like that to happen, but we prefer not to have that happen in our particular part of the neighborhood. So, and then of course, you know, if somebody owns a home, then they're personally invested in that neighborhood. We have duplexes that are on the other side of Rhonda that are owned by Mr. Steve.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
Got 2 minutes.
You've got 2 minutes. Yeah.
That's owned by Mr. Steve Bunn, and he keeps them meticulously But a lot of times what happens is, you know, people put stuff in and then they sell it and then it's not maintained the way that it should be. So that's another issue that we'd have to look at as well. So, did you have any questions for me?
Thank you for your input.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Avery Grant. Avery, you have 5 minutes to address council.
I have some physical materials I'll give to you guys really quickly. Different packets right here. I just don't want it everywhere, guys. I'm a little bit excited. So I've got some materials there for you. I'm just going to hit the highlights because of the time restraint, and I do want to be timely. So kind of my first thing that I noticed there on page 3, talking about the R3 zoning in this area was what's the highest and best use of a piece of land. And whenever I'm looking to make an investment, I want to make the highest and best use of something. And when I saw duplexes right there, as well as R3 all around it, highest and best use automatically clicked in my brain to go to R3. The biggest thing that I noticed in West Plains, whenever I evaluated this on the next page, is availability. There were 3 rentals as of January 14th that were below $1,000 in the entire city of West Plains. There was a trailer house and 2 other older apartments. There is not any supply of quality, affordable rentals in this city. There's simply not. And when it comes to affordability, on the next page, when I build a triplex, I have 1 foundation, I have 1 framing job, I have 1 roof, and that shared cost allows it to be more affordable for myself to build, but also to rent. And so what's going to happen is a renter is probably going to rent for about $300 less per month, I have figured out, based on the cost per unit that I would have. And so it's going to be more affordable for them. They're going to have more affordable utilities because they have a shared wall. And because you have that close proximity to another structure, automatically the utility bill is more affordable. I can attest to this because I do live on a triplex on Burke Avenue that Mark Roy built. And my utility bill every single month is under $150 a month, whether it's in the dark, you know, this cold right now, or even in the extreme warmth. So it's just more affordable. And when it comes to building single family homes, there is not support to build and sell single family homes here. I actually have some comps ran where unfortunately, there was about 11 homes that sold in the entirety of West Plains last year that were new construction. And on average, they sat on the market over 220 days. And so for me, I have 12 months to build a house from a lender. And in that 12 months, I have to build it, which is probably about 6 months, and I have to sell it. And if I have 220 days, I'm probably gonna have to renew my loan. More costs. I'm probably honestly going to lose money even building it. So my options, if I build a single family on this, whether it be a rental or a sell home, is to build the cheapest thing I can possibly build, not out of spite if zoning doesn't go well, but simply out of necessity of what I can actually make money. And so that's where I have to I don't do a garage. I do a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, all vinyl, the simplest thing I can possibly build to be able to afford it. And for other people to be able to afford it, because there's not a lot of home purchasing as far as new construction in the city. And so really the most important thing that I found is I talked to the assessor. And when I talked to him, he actually mentioned the percentage of taxes. And so the triplex that I lived in appraised for $465,000 and was sold on the market for that. If I added garages to mine, you can see an inspiration photo that I do think is very valuable in that packet of what I want to build. And whenever I build those units, I project based on the quality of finishes as well as garages. These buildings were appraised for about $525,000. And when they do—
2 minutes.
Thank you. If I were to build $250,000 single family homes or build these 5 triplexes on these 5 lots, we're talking a $211,000 tax revenue over 10 years versus about $110,000 in revenue. So the tax revenue doubles. But what's most important is the city of West Plains in that 10-year stretch, if the taxes did not go up at all, the city of West Plains schools would bring in an extra $100,000 in tax revenue. So I'm making it more affordable for the tenant, which there is not availability for. I build a quality place, and I'm able to actually further the economy within the city. And whenever you have an opportunity to create that revenue for your city school district, I believe it's a good venture to spend. Finally, she mentioned it, the duplex is right there, Maureen mentioned. Burke Avenue gets a bad rap. It's a low income government housing project. And so to keep the rents down to be able to keep that thing in its actual category. But whenever you have a quality, well-built product, you can see, I personally live there. I drive by those duplexes
1
every
minute.
day, and they're quality. and they're good units. And really, the last thing that I'll say is I'm actually building my personal home right next to Marine. It recently appraised at $307,000 pre-construction. We're going to start digging next week, already pulled permits. And so I'm invested to have my family, my kids be raised on this street and to build quality units. And my desire is to build them quality to where they have longevity. I can't promise I would never sell them, but if I did, if you build them in a quality manner from the front side, even 30, 40, 50 years from now with stone and brick and good quality products, that should hold up regardless of who's owning it. And obviously, my intention is never to sell these. I want to hold them near and dear to my heart. They'll be my first investment properties I build. And so that's my full intention. So in closing, I'm able to create more affordable units for the tenants, more tax revenue for the city, and I'm able to start a real estate journey that I hope to be prosperous and build great units that are affordable for people of this city. So that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next are resolutions. Resolution 2025-01, a resolution of the City of West Plains adopting an updated December 2024 official West Plains Howell County Local Emergency Operations Plan.
Move to approve resolution 2025-01.
I second.
All right. Ooh, 20-1. Here we go. New year. Any discussion on this same?
Just briefly, every few years, we are asked to update our emergency operations plan. And so this is that time of the year. So we've shared this with our police and fire departments. They both had opportunities to provide comments and get them back to the agency. So I believe SCOCOG probably had a public hearing on this at some point late last year. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Was there anything new added this time for the next 5-year period?
Maybe a map update. I'm looking at Emily. I can't, yet. I don't even know if there was really a map update, really. I think there was just, FEMA is still in the process of updating some floodplain maps and things, but generally for emergency operations purposes, no.
Contact.
Same thing. Contact
Yeah,
information. Yeah,
contact
thank you.
people. I saw that.
The
traffic.
appendices,
They
yep.
changed some names and
Yeah.
obviously happens.
So is Chief our representative?
Yeah.
Are you our representative on that process?
Yes, myself and Chief Stern, we both looked at it, we updated numbers. We did with the system.
Because, 3 or 4 years ago, they wanted us to approve the updated plan without a resolution being adopted. So did we do it this time around?
That's what this is.
That's what this is?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then right here.
Okay.
That one.
And this is the emergency operations plan. You probably might have been thinking of the mitigation plan that we had a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it identified
Yeah.
major employers, things of that nature.
All right. No further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Next up is ordinances. Bill 4787 to become ordinance 4787, second reading. An ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute the amended contract between the City of West Plains, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, providing for the installation of traffic signal battery components to be maintained by the commission.
Move to approve bill 4787 to become ordinance 4787, second reading.
Second.
Yep, Director Mitchell is at a school board meeting this evening, so he could not attend, but just happy to answer any questions you might have. Just as a reminder for you and for the audience, MoDOT provides the signals and the maintenance of all of those, and we provide the batteries for backup in the event that power to those lights goes down for whatever reason. This is a continuation of agreement that we've had going back with MoDOT for several years.
Unfortunately, when they swapped out the lights recently, we have to put new battery
Yep.
backups.
That is true.
All right, is there any public input on Bill 4787? Kelly?
Collins,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Neeson, Topliff.
Yes.
All right. Next is Bill 4788 to become ordinance 4788, first reading. An ordinance of the City of West Plains, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to execute a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Railway Highway Crossing Improvement Program Second Supplemental Agreement.
Move to accept the first reading of Bill 4788 to become ordinance 4788, first reading.
Second.
Oh, Emily.
So this is to replace the original agreement with MoDOT for their portion of the overpath project. This new agreement is for engineering costs only and for $900,000 towards the total project. Because it's MoDOT, we have to do a full ordinance review for the funding.
Boy, a lot of dirt getting moved there.
They're moving.
Mhm. Right. Any other questions? All right, any public input for Bill 4788? Ellie?
Collins,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Neeson, Topliff.
Yes.
Okay. Bill 4789 to become ordinance 4789, first reading. An ordinance rezoning certain property, thereby changing the official zoning map of the city of West Plains, Missouri, and defining the boundaries of the area to be changed on said official zoning map, properties located in Block 12 of the Morrison subdivision.
Move to accept the first reading of Bill 4789 to become ordinance 4789, first reading.
Second.
All right.
Good evening again, everyone. You've heard a couple of people speak on this topic already, but just as a background, had a request to planning and zoning to rezone some lots from R1 to R3. Planning and Zoning Commission did meet on this item. We had a public hearing on January 2nd of this year, where we had speakers in favor of and in opposition to. So the item in front of you tonight is for a first reading. Give you an opportunity to consider the item, ask questions, get input from staff, and then the next meeting in February would be when a decision would be made. So happy to answer any questions. Do apologize on behalf of Dustin. He wanted to be here, but he was stuck with plane issues, I think in Dallas, Texas, last we heard. So he is not here to help provide a lot of background information in terms of the P&Z meeting. But we do have a comprehensive plan in place, and according to that comprehensive plan, we did designate these parcels to remain R1. So happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if I can't answer them, I'll ask staff to come up and help as well.
I think during the planning and zoning, that comprehensive plan is, and land use really had an impact on planning and zoning not recommending approval of this.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, with this being first reading, passing it does not mean go start building. It means that'll give us additional time to get our thoughts together, just to kind of throw that out there. Yep. Is there any public input on Bill 4789?
I'll speak for myself, Nick Ellison, and Andrew Cobb, which is not here. He had a funeral to attend. We actually own a lot next to Avery, and then ours, and then we have Avery that has purchased the other lots. We looked at doing the same thing, but we did not want to confront and go through the trouble to do a triplex or duplex, because sometimes it's not very easy. We had the opportunity to buy across the street from Burke on Plainview, which Andrew has since bought 5 acres over there, and we were offered the same thing just last week. You could buy R3 land over there, 10 acres for 500,000, or you could buy 4 acres for 250,000. So, and that being said, if you can buy R1 land for 20,000 or 18,000, I think we bought our lot for 17,000 for a lot, equals almost the same as an acre whenever you classify that up to a 250,000. That why can't you go from R1 to R3 and make your land value more? I mean, it's just simple to look at that. If I wanted to do that, I could go buy all the R1 land in town and then start building triplexes on it. It's just not that easy. There's several neighbors around there that on the backside, Colin Young lives up on the hill. And now that he sees there's triplexes in attempt to being built, he's gonna get with Jerry to buy the rest of the lots right there, so he don't have to look at the triplexes. We know what rentals do. Everybody, not everybody, but some of you own possibly rentals, and you know what you get in a rental. I wouldn't want that living next to my house. You probably wouldn't want it living next to your house. Even though they are brand new, you can see how the traffic will be crazy going there on Deathridge. And just like it is now, you got the kids across the road and go to the little park over there. One day, maybe not today, but it may happen. You never know. I work on Missouri Avenue. I own a business on Missouri Avenue. I already see with the directions of the railroad going through that direction, the college across the street. One day, it may not be tomorrow, but it could happen. So, I mean, we just gotta watch when we got young kids riding bicycles to that little park. Maybe they need a park over there also, but that's besides the point. But thank you.
All right, thank you for your input. All right, any other input? Yes, ma'am. You guys don't mind, say your names.
Yes,
Okay.
my name's Stephanie Horn
Okay,
and I am Nick's wife. So we did buy a lot before Avery did, knowing that it was zoned R1. So we were just gonna build a house on it. Then we found out what he had proposed. I mean, if that's what the city wants to do, we understand. But we bought it with the understanding that that was gonna be single family. And all the neighbors enjoy the area like it is. Single family is definitely different than multifamily. My parents have had rentals for years and it's just different. So nothing against somebody that rents, but normally they don't take as good a care of your place as they would if they owned it. So, so we're here in opposition to rezoning. So, thank you.
thank you. All right.
I will speak briefly.
Yeah, it's public input.
So just a couple quick points that I did want to make. As far as the comprehensive plan that was originally created, I think obviously plans are well created, and I think there's a lot of work that goes into those. But if you see an opportunity where you can create a greater opportunity for the greater good of the city of West Plains, when it comes to quality, for example, I'll keep going back to those duplexes that are right across the road. They're a stone's throw away, and they've been there for many years. And so if you're deathly afraid of multifamily, it was already there, so to speak of, and I'm going to build my personal home on the street. My 3-year-old and my 6-month-old will grow up on that street. And so when it talks about safety and things, that's just inherently, no matter where you live, if you're going to live in a subdivision. I think the most valuable thing within this too, I know Maureen had brought a couple points up about drainage. Drainage you assess per house. And so we would plan the drainage based on each house. Whether you may make it all move to the back, you make it split. There's obviously construction details, but we would account for that in every single building to account for the drainage. At the end of the day, that R3 is right there. So I'm not just taking random R1 lots and transforming them. There's a reason why it neighbors to it. So I could even apply for the zoning. And like I said, it's right across the road. And at the end of the day, the value that it brings for affordability, for tenants, more tax revenue for the city, those things far outweigh a little bit of uncomfortability that comes with maybe the unknown. But whenever you build a quality product and you have precedent of it right there, I think it outweighs the potential poor outcomes of it. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. No one else has any input? Kelly?
Collins,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Neeson, Topliff.
Yes, but like I said, that just gives us time to mull through this a little more. So.
Correct. We'll have a second reading next month.
No council action. So Sam?
Good evening again. Just a few items for you. Reminder that the Nonprofit Expo / Volunteer Fair will be held at the Civic Center on January 28th. I believe that's a Tuesday, a week from today, from 2 to 5 at the Civic Center. So if you're looking for volunteer opportunities or you want to learn more about some of the nonprofits in town who may happen to be looking for volunteers, we encourage you to attend that fair. I know students have service hours they might need to complete as well as part of college or high school. So encourage your kids to attend that as well. There's some good opportunities there. The library is hosting a Valentine's Day box decorating contest. Submissions are being accepted until February 14th, but obviously if you want to get more votes, you should get your box in early and submit it over to the library. So, but they will have a contest and pick a winner on Valentine's Day. And finally, going back to the Civic Center this Saturday is the Bridal Expo. So a pretty popular event here in town. So encourage anybody who doesn't have anything to do on Saturday to come to the Civic Center. Happy to answer any questions you may have. All right.
Wait the quick report.
You bet. I've already spoken enough this evening.
Mayor and council, I do have a concern in regard to the flooding problems. We see that happening more and more in town in different locations. We have an all hazard mitigation plan that addresses flooding, and what are we doing to mitigate that?
Mhm. I'll invite Emily to come and add some thoughts as well, but you'll recall the two detention basins that we built using CDBG and EDA funds. We saw with December's flood event, the significant impact that those two basins had on the areas that it was designed to protect. So the areas where we saw the most flooding around the high school are that third basin that we don't have funding for right now. And Emily can probably speak to some potential funding opportunities that have just become available as a result of December's disaster events.
Sure. So if you remember a few years back, we went through the stormwater channelization project, and the timeliness of that coincided with the 2017 flood, to where after the flood, we were able to take quick advantage of a lot of money because we already had this plan stowed away and ready to go. It was pretty fresh at that time. Since then, like Sam said, we've been able to complete the 2 large-scale project basins. We have 2 more large-scale projects with the basins as well, but also throughout that plan, that considers the channelization of the full flow of both creeks coming in, right? So as we're looking at all these projects and all this new money that might be available, we've got some new FEMA money that's being released for the flood event that we had back in November. We were impacted enough to qualify. We don't know to what level yet for our region, so we don't know how much money will be available or how competitive it might look. But with that, we're looking at what we can do to start really digging in on the rest of that channelization plan where, yeah, those big ticket items became available because we have big money available. Now we're trying to figure out how we can capitalize with these smaller projects and make more impact on these direct neighborhoods. Specifically Wayhaven, we know we have a lot of issues over there. We know we have downtown stormwater issues. We know we have, Southern Hills issues. We know where we have all these little pockets, and we also know where we can immediately impact some of those just by changing the channelization of how that creek's flowing through town, widening at a couple of places we can widen it and some different things like that. To Sam's point too, we are seeing a little more impact, not just from creek level flooding, but also from what we consider stormwater impact, which is roof lines, drainage and ditches and things like that. We've been fortunate in the planning department to be able to beef up our inspection side of the house just a little bit. We've been able to give Dustin a little more support on the inspection side since he's transitioned to do some economic development work for us. And because of that, we're also being able to dig in a little more in our stormwater master plan, both for city requirements for what we're doing in-house as the city, as an organization, but then also what we're requiring for our builders, developers, contractors, and those that are out in the field. So we're also becoming a lot more aggressive on how we're maintaining those BMPs during construction, how we're approving plans and what we're really looking for. And we have the manpower right now to be able to actually go in and do those inspections, follow up on those, make sure that those impacts are what we expected and anticipated. And if not, working with property owner or our own crews, if it's on our end, to make sure that we're mitigating that, even where it seems like it's a small effort, ditch clean outs, things like that. So those are all the things that we're trying to actively pursue. But again, we're in a position right now where, because of both our stormwater channelization plan and our MS4 program, we're now on the enforcement side. We just got the MS4 program approved last year. So now we're on the enforcement side of that, coming up with how we're documenting those processes and working with DNR to make sure that we're in compliance.
When we have developments that put in and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then 10 or 15 years later, you have a neighborhood like these ladies here
Mhm.
that's flooded. Or didn't we not go right?
Right. We spent a lot of time talking about that. You know, and you know how it is. I mean, once we have a flood somewhere, water is going to cut a new path. And where it never flooded before, if it floods now, it's going to always flood there now. And so, you know, those things we're trying to really pay more attention to what the upstream impacts could be as we're considering. We have other developments that are in that similar position where we know this is an upstream concern because they're building down here right now, but as they start building up here, it's going to start creating issues down here. So we're doing a lot more now to be a little more aggressive than we have in the past with builders, developers, those that are working through on the engineering side, to make sure we're really looking at what those long-term impacts are and making sure that we're not setting up our existing neighbors for failure because of new development. There are things we can't really fix in some areas, but we also have learned a lot of hard lessons in some areas that we're not trying to repeat other places. So those are a lot of examples. We have a lot of examples through town that we point to when we're looking at new developments where we say we don't want to end up with another one of these. So let's make sure we're having them do X, Y, and Z over here.
So do we as a council, then this, my question is completely above board if you want to have it. Hopefully it's not a sinking question. But do we have funding to fix people's problems like that? That built the house 15 years ago and now it's flooded because somebody upstream didn't do, or we didn't have engineering done and it showed us a different picture than what's actually happened? When do we address those problems?
So right now, I think our best strategy is again, working with the developers, to understand that and try and pass those costs on to the development, which ultimately, gets passed on to whoever's going to purchase that home. So there's a negative effect there. A lot of cities will have, stormwater, taxes, that they're able to collect, and then put towards those issues. We don't have a stormwater sales tax here in West Plains. So, that's a potential funding source down the road.
We've talked about that. Yeah.
If the public wanted to consider that, that's obviously any tax issue has to go to a voter for approval. So that could be potentially an option there, but otherwise we're really sort of stuck. We've got a stormwater plan, so that's good. Like Emily said, anytime those grant opportunities come through that we see, we have an opportunity to snag some of those dollars and be at the front of the line in terms of the application process, because we already have the supporting documentation to help make our argument. But again, those are all competitive grants, so it's really hard to get some dollars for those smaller projects. So unfortunately, sometimes you just have to wait for a big event that's going to bring some state or federal funding along with it that you can then capitalize on. So, we're working on St. Louis Bridge. We've got a few some of those other channelization efforts that Emily has talked about, that we've identified in our capital improvement plan. So that is an existing source for us right now is, capital improvement sales tax. But we use that for a lot of, building other infrastructure, vehicles and things like that. So there's opportunities to raise some of those revenues. But again, they're going to be contingent on voter approval.
I think it's something we can definitely continue this discussion at a later date and work into it, but.
Yep.
Nothing we can solve tonight.
Right.
Bill's high on the hill.
Every city I've ever been in has water issues.
Yeah.
Water does what water wants to do.
All right. Anything else? All right, no further business. May God bless, and we are adjourned.